The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and intention. For 1,000 generations, the Jedi have served as its guardians, interpreting its will and maintaining balance between light and dark. But the Force cannot predict what comes from beyond its reach. It cannot warn of threats born in distant universes where different laws govern existence. And on this day, as the Clone Wars rage across 1,000 systems, something arrives in the Star Wars galaxy that the Force could not foresee. The dimensional rift opened without warning above Coruscant's upper atmosphere, a tear in reality itself that burned like a wound in space. No hyperspace signature preceded it. No gravitational distortion marked its approach. One moment, the sky was filled with Republic cruisers and civilian traffic navigating the endless cityscape. The next, a massive warship materialized from nothing, its hull scarred and alien, its design unlike anything in Imperial, Republic, or Separatist databases. The vessel was dying. Flames licked across its exterior as systems failed in cascading sequence. But before it broke apart completely, dozens of escape pods launched toward the planet's surface, streaking through the atmosphere like falling stars. The largest pod descended toward the industrial sector, its trajectory calculated with mathematical precision despite the chaos of its arrival. Inside that pod, Thanos opened his eyes. The Mad Titan assessed his situation with the cold pragmatism that had carried him through centuries of conquest. The Space Stone was gone, ripped from his gauntlet during the dimensional crossing. The Reality Stone had vanished into the void between universes. His carefully assembled arsenal of infinity, the power to reshape existence itself, had been stripped away in an instant. But Thanos had not survived this long by relying solely on cosmic artifacts. His strength remained, his will remained, his purpose remained. The pod slammed into a Coruscant landing platform with enough force to crack the Duracrete. Thanos rose from the wreckage, his golden armor catching the light of this galaxy's unfamiliar sun. The air here was different, thinner, filled with industrial exhaust and the electromagnetic hum of a planet-wide city. He breathed it in, analyzing, adapting. Around him, his Black Order emerged from their own pods. Ebony Maw floated gracefully to the ground, his telekinetic powers already probing their new environment. Cull Obsidian's massive frame cast a shadow across the platform. Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive moved like predators, sensing fresh territory. "Father," Ebony Maw said, his voice carrying its usual mixture of reverence and curiosity. "This place, I sense something pervasive, an energy that permeates everything, but it does not respond to my will." Thanos nodded slowly. He had felt it too, a presence in this galaxy, vast and omnipresent, yet completely beyond his reach. In his universe, he had wielded the fundamental forces of reality. Here, he was powerful but limited, mortal in ways he had not been for decades. "Then we adapt," Thanos said simply, "as we always have." The first responders arrived within minutes. Republic security speeders surrounded the landing platform, their blasters trained on the intruders. Clone troopers in white armor established a perimeter, while officers shouted demands for identification. Thanos studied them with interest. These soldiers moved with identical precision, their tactics suggesting shared training at a fundamental level. Clones, he realized. This civilization had mastered biological replication for military purposes. "Unidentified vessels, you are in violation of Republic airspace," a clone commander announced through a loudspeaker. Power down your weapons and prepare to be taken into custody for questioning." Thanos stepped forward, his heavy footfalls echoing across the platform. The clone troopers tensed, fingers tightening on triggers. But before anyone could fire, a new presence made itself known. 3 figures descended from above, moving with a grace that seemed to defy gravity itself. They wore robes of brown and tan, and at their belts hung cylindrical weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. The leader, a humanoid with orange skin and distinctive facial markings, raised one hand. Every blaster in the security perimeter suddenly wrenched from clone hands and clattered uselessly to the ground. "Stand down," the orange-skinned figure commanded. Her voice carried absolute authority. "We will handle this." Thanos watched as the 3 approached. He could see no visible means of propulsion, yet they moved as though something invisible lifted them. The energy Ebony Maw had sensed. This force clearly gave them abilities beyond normal physical law. Interesting, powerful, certainly, but every power had limits. Every strength concealed a weakness. "I am Jedi Master Shak Tai," the leader said, stopping a respectful distance away. Her hand rested near, but not on her weapon, a gesture of readiness without aggression. "You have arrived in Republic space during wartime. We mean you no harm, but we require an explanation. Who are you, and how did you penetrate our planetary defenses?" Thanos met her gaze with his own, unflinching. "I am Thanos of Titan. I did not choose to come here. A cosmic anomaly brought my ship to your galaxy." "Your intentions?" asked another Jedi, a Zabrak male with horns and intricate tattoos. "Survival," Thanos replied. "Understanding, and if necessary, correction." The third Jedi, a human female with her hand already on her lightsaber hilt, spoke urgently to Shak Tai. Expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Thanos recognized that look. He had seen it countless times across countless worlds. The moment when those in power realized they faced something beyond their experience, something their usual advantages might not overcome. "You will come with us to the Jedi Temple," Shak Tai said, her tone now formal and unyielding. "The Council will determine what is to be done with you and your companions." Thanos considered this. In his experience, councils and bureaucracies moved slowly, bound by rules and procedures. They would waste time debating while he gathered intelligence about this galaxy, its structure, its conflicts, its vulnerabilities. Yes, he would go with them. For now. "Very well," Thanos said. "Take me to your leaders. Let us discuss the nature of balance."
The Jedi Temple rose like a mountain of stone and purpose from Coruscant's endless cityscape, its 5 spires reaching toward the sky as if attempting to touch the very force it venerated. Thanos studied the architecture as they approached in a Republic transport, flanked by a squadron of clone trooper gunships. The building was ancient, he noted, its foundations predating the modern city by millennia. Places of power accumulated history like layers of sediment, and this temple radiated significance even to one who could not sense their mystical force. Inside, the halls were filled with beings of 100 species, all wearing similar robes, all moving with that same uncanny grace. Children practiced with training sabers under the watchful eyes of instructors. Older students meditated in perfect stillness, and everywhere, Thanos felt the weight of eyes upon him. These Jedi studying the void in their perception where he should be, disturbed by his absence from their precious energy field. The council chamber occupied the temple's highest spire, a circular room with tall windows offering a panoramic view of Coruscant's endless sprawl. 12 seats arranged in a circle, though only 9 were currently occupied. The Jedi Masters who comprised the council represented various species and ages, but all shared the same penetrating gaze, the same aura of accumulated wisdom and barely concealed suspicion. Master Yoda sat in one of the seats, his ancient eyes regarding Thanos with an intensity that belied his small stature. Beside him, Mace Windu's expression was harder, more skeptical. Shakti had taken her position in the circle after escorting Thanos inside, where he now stood at the chamber's center, surrounded but unbowed. "Thanos of Titan," Mace Windu began, his deep voice filling the chamber. "You claim to have arrived here by accident, through a cosmic anomaly. Our scientists have analyzed the debris from your vessel. The technology is indeed foreign to this galaxy, but that raises more questions than it answers." "Ask them," Thanos said simply. "Your ship's design suggests a civilization with advanced capabilities," another council member, a Syrian named Ki-Adi-Mundi, observed. "Yet you travel with only 4 companions. Are you refugees, explorers, advanced scouts for an invasion force?" Thanos allowed himself the faintest smile. "I am a survivor of my universe's greatest crisis. In my reality, overpopulation and resource depletion threatened all life. I sought to restore balance through controlled reduction. My methods were effective." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Only Yoda remained perfectly still, his expression unreadable. "Reduction," Mace Windu repeated, his hand now resting openly on his lightsaber. "Explain what you mean by that term." "Exactly what you fear I mean," Thanos replied, seeing no benefit in deception. "I eliminated half of all living beings in my universe, randomly, dispassionately, without bias toward rich or poor, powerful or weak. It was the only way to ensure survival for those who remained. The kindest solution to an impossible problem." The council chamber erupted in barely controlled outrage. Several Jedi rose from their seats. Lightsabers ignited with sharp hisses, their blades casting the room in hues of blue and green. But Yoda raised one small hand, and silence fell once more. "Calm yourselves, you must," the ancient master said softly. "Threatening words are not actions. Judge him by what he does here, we should, not what he claims of distant places we cannot verify." "With respect, Master Yoda," interjected Shakti, "this being admits to genocide on a scale beyond comprehension. His philosophy is antithetical to everything the Jedi stand for. How can we not see him as a threat?" Thanos looked at each council member in turn, reading their body language, cataloging their reactions. Fear masked as righteousness, horror disguised as moral certainty. They condemned him without understanding the mathematics of survival, the cruel calculus that governed finite resources and infinite appetite. They were like children playing at philosophy, sheltered by abundance they had never earned, and blind to the collapse that awaited all civilizations who refused to make difficult choices. "You wage war across your galaxy," Thanos observed, his voice cutting through their deliberations. "Billions die on battlefields from Geonosis to Christophsis. Your clone army, manufactured lives created specifically for combat, fights droid armies that exist only to kill. You speak of balance, yet your entire civilization is locked in suicidal conflict. And you judge me?" "The Clone Wars were forced upon us," Mace Windu countered, his anger barely controlled. "The Separatists attacked the Republic. We defend innocent lives against those who would enslave entire systems." "You defend the status quo," Thanos corrected. "This war is a symptom of deeper disease. Your Republic is corrupt, bloated, consuming resources faster than they can be replenished. Your Separatists are no better, corporations pursuing profit without regard for sustainability. Both sides accelerate toward collapse, and you call it righteousness because you wave flags while you do it." A Jedi Thanos did not recognize, a Nautilon with head tentacles, spoke urgently. "Master Yoda, we cannot allow this being to remain free on Coruscant. His ideology is toxic, dangerous. If he attempts to implement his solution here..." "Attempt?" Thanos interrupted. "If I wish to reduce your population, I would not announce my intentions to your governing body first. I would identify your infrastructure vulnerabilities, calculate optimal strike points, and execute with precision before you realized what was happening. That I stand here speaking with you should tell you something about my immediate intentions." The council members exchanged glances, weighing his words. Thanos could see the calculation in their eyes. How much of a threat did he represent? Could their force abilities overcome his physical advantages? Should they attempt to imprison him immediately or maintain diplomatic contact while they learned more? Finally, Yoda spoke again. A test I propose. Confined to the temple, you will be under constant supervision. Study our ways you may. Learn of the Force and how balance through harmony, not destruction, is achieved. If peaceful coexistence you can demonstrate, perhaps a place in this galaxy you may find. But any action against innocence, the ancient master's eyes hardened, and the full might of the Jedi Order will fall upon you. Thanos considered this. Confined, yes, but not imprisoned. Supervised, certainly, but not restrained. They were giving him exactly what he needed. Time to learn, to observe, to understand this galaxy's true structure. He could see his Black Order through the force-proof bond they shared. They had already begun their own reconnaissance, gathering intelligence on Republic and Separatist capabilities. I accept your terms, Thanos said. For now. For now? Mace Windu's tone held warning. Thanos met the Jedi Master's gaze without flinching. I am immortal, Master Windu. Patient. I can afford to wait, to learn, to understand. Can you? Before anyone could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the temple. A holographic display materialized in the council chamber center, showing a Jedi communications officer. Masters, we're receiving emergency transmissions from multiple Outer Rim sectors. Jedi Knights are being attacked by unknown assailants. The descriptions match the 4 beings who arrived with the entity called Thanos. All eyes turned to the Mad Titan. He remained perfectly calm, his expression unchanged. My children, Thanos said simply, are ensuring I have leverage for these negotiations. You wanted to test my capabilities, Master Yoda. Now you know. I can strike across your entire galaxy simultaneously, and your force cannot predict where or when. Release me, give me what I require to study this galaxy, and no more Jedi need die today. Mace Windu's lightsaber was at Thanos' throat in an instant, the purple blade humming with lethal intent. You dare threaten us in our own temple? Thanos didn't flinch from the plasma blade. I make no threats, Master Windu, only observations. You cannot sense me through your force. You cannot predict my actions. And while you hold me here, my Black Order eliminates your warriors one by one. The mathematics are simple. Release me or lose more lives. Choose. The mental assault began without warning. All 5 Jedi Masters struck simultaneously, their combined force presence hammering against Thanos' consciousness like a telepathic battering ram. In their universe, such an attack would shatter most minds instantly, leaving victims catatonic or dead. They expected resistance, certainly. Thanos' willpower was evident in every word he spoke, but they expected it to crumble eventually under sustained pressure from 5 of the Order's most powerful practitioners. They were wrong. Thanos stood motionless as their assault crashed against his mind, and felt nothing. Not because he was immune to telepathy. In his universe, beings like Mantis and the Ebony Maw had successfully influenced his thoughts. But the Force was not telepathy as he understood it. It was fundamentally different, operating on principles foreign to his reality. Their attacks slid past him like water off polished stone, unable to find purchase on a mind that existed outside the energy field they manipulated. The Jedi Masters intensified their efforts. Mace Windu's face contorted with concentration. Shak Ti's Montrals glowed faintly with exertion. Kit Fisto's usually jovial expression twisted into something resembling desperation. And still, Thanos stood unmoved, watching them with something approaching pity. Fascinating, he said softly. Your force allows you to read emotions, predict movements, influence weak minds, but I am none of those things. To your mystical energy, I simply do not exist. You're trying to move an object you cannot perceive, touch something outside your dimensional reach. Futile. Impossible, Shak Ti gasped, sweat beading on her orange skin. Every living being has a presence in the Force. Every mind can be touched. In your galaxy, Thanos corrected, I am not of your galaxy. The rules that bind you do not bind me. Just as I cannot manipulate your force, you cannot penetrate my mind through it. We exist on parallel planes of reality that happen to occupy the same physical space. Strategically speaking, this gives me significant advantages. Mace Windu deactivated his lightsaber assault focus and ignited the blade itself in one smooth motion, the amethyst plasma casting harsh shadows across the cell. Then we extract information the old-fashioned way. Torture? Thanos didn't flinch from the weapon. I expected better from the legendary Jedi Order, but then your entire philosophy is built on contradictions. You claim to serve peace yet command armies. You preach non-attachment yet grieve when your own die. You condemn my solution to overpopulation while your war kills millions. At least I'm honest about my methods. Your solution is genocide, Kit Fisto snarled, his lightsaber joining Windu's in illuminating the cell. My solution is mathematics, Thanos countered. Finite resources divided by infinite population growth equals 0. Eventual extinction for all. I simply accelerated the timeline and ensured survival for half rather than death for everyone. You want to call it evil? Fine, but it works. Before the confrontation could escalate further, alarms screamed throughout the temple. The distinctive wail of proximity alerts something was approaching fast, something big. The Jedi Masters exchanged glances, torn between continuing the interrogation and responding to the new threat. The choice was made for them when the entire temple shuddered. Thanos smiled slightly. Right on schedule. They emerged onto the temple's main landing platform to find chaos. A massive warship hung in Coruscant's sky, its shadow falling across kilometers of cityscape. Thanos recognized the design immediately. One of the Separatist Providence-class dreadnoughts, bristling with turbolaser batteries and hangar bays, disgorging hundreds of vulture droids. But this ship bore no Separatist markings. Its hull was painted in the colors Thanos knew well from his own universe. And standing on the platform, having carved through 24 clone troopers with contemptuous ease, was Ebony Maw. "Father," the telepath said, bowing with exaggerated deference, "your children have acquired a suitable vessel. Shall we continue negotiations with the Jedi from a position of strength?" Republic fighters were already scrambling, attempting to engage the dreadnought. Turbo laser fire lit up the sky as the temple's defensive batteries opened up, but the ship had positioned itself perfectly. Any attack powerful enough to damage it would risk destroying significant portions of the city below. A hostage situation on a planetary scale. Count Dooku's holographic form materialized on the platform, transmitted from somewhere in the Outer Rim. "Ah, Thanos, I see your Black Order is as resourceful as reported, stealing one of my most powerful warships directly from the Separatist fleet at Sullust. Impressive." Thanos ignored the Sith Lord. His attention focused on the Jedi Masters now surrounding him in a combat formation. "I told your council that I could strike across your galaxy simultaneously, that I would gather intelligence about your capabilities. Did you think my children were simply assassinating your people? They were also studying you, learning how Jedi fight, how they think, how they die. Every engagement provided data, and now we have sufficient data to make our move." "You planned this from the beginning," Mace Windu said, his voice low and dangerous. "The diplomatic approach, the interrogation, all distractions while your operatives position themselves." "I am always planning," Thanos confirmed. "The moment I arrived in your galaxy, I began calculating probabilities, identifying leverage points, determining optimal strategies. Your Jedi Order represents approximately 10,000 Force-sensitive warriors scattered across the galaxy. Powerful, yes, but stretched impossibly thin by your war. The temple itself, this symbol of your 1,000-generation legacy, houses perhaps 2,000 Jedi at any given time, a target-rich environment." Shakti's expression shifted to horror as she understood. "You're going to attack the temple, directly, while we're all gathered here." "Not attack," Thanos corrected. "Destroy. Completely. Efficiently. With mathematical precision." He gestured to the dreadnought overhead. "That ship carries enough firepower to level several city blocks. More importantly, it carries a working hyperspace drive. Tell me, Master Jedi, what happens when a ship that size makes a hyperspace jump with incorrect calculations?" When it emerges from hyperspace inside a planetary gravity well, inside a structure, the Jedi Masters' faces went pale with understanding. A hyperspace collision with a planet was theoretical devastation, so catastrophic it was considered impossible. No captain would ever attempt something so insane. The kinetic energy released would be equivalent to multiple planetary-scale weapons detonating simultaneously. "You're insane," Kit Fisto whispered. "You'd destroy yourself in the blast. The entire city sector would be vaporized." "A calculated sacrifice," Thanos replied calmly. "Though unnecessary. The ship is automated now, its crew evacuated. My Black Order and I will be safely distant when it executes the jump. As for the collateral damage," he surveyed the Coruscant skyline with clinical detachment. "Approximately 8 million civilian casualties in the immediate blast radius, 12 million more from secondary effects, structural collapses, fires, atmospheric disruption, an acceptable cost to eliminate 2,000 Jedi and cripple your order permanently." Mace Windu's lightsaber was at Thanos' throat again, the blade's heat washing over the Titan's skin. "You'll die before that ship moves." "Will I?" Thanos met the Jedi Master's gaze without fear. "Your blade is plasma contained by magnetic fields. Painful, certainly. Lethal to most beings, absolutely. But I have survived worse. And more importantly, can you kill me fast enough to prevent what's already in motion? The ship's hyperdrive is charging. My children have infiltrated the temple's lower levels. In Ebony Maw's telekinetic abilities allow him to detonate the temple's power reactors from here if you attempt to evacuate." He leaned forward slightly, letting the lightsaber's edge touch his skin, feeling it burn. "You have perhaps 10 minutes before the jump coordinates lock, so you must choose, Master Windu. Do you waste time trying to kill me? Do you attempt to evacuate 2,000 Jedi and tens of millions of civilians in 10 minutes? Do you assault that dreadnought with fighters that can't penetrate its shields before it jumps? Or," Thanos paused, letting the word hang in the air, "do you negotiate with me?" "Never," Shak Ti spat. "The Jedi do not bargain with terrorists." "Then you will die as martyrs," Thanos said simply. "Principled, righteous, dead. Your order will be remembered as guardians who refuse to compromise even when compromise would have saved millions of lives. Is that the legacy you want? Is that what your precious force would counsel?" The seconds ticked by. Overhead, the dreadnought's engines began to glow brighter as the hyperdrive reached critical charge. Through the temple's windows, Jedi could be seen scrambling to organize evacuations, knowing it was futile. The clone troopers on the platform held their positions, but their weapons wavered, uncertain whether to fire on Thanos with their own masters so close. Finally, Yoda's voice echoed across the platform. The ancient master had arrived with a full security detail, his expression grave. "Speak, you may. What terms do you demand?" Thanos gestured for Mace Windu to lower his weapon. The Jedi Master hesitated, fury radiating from every line of his body, but eventually complied. Thanos straightened, addressing Yoda with something approaching respect. This being, at least, understood the mathematics of impossible choices. "I require access to your archives," Thanos began. "Every record of your galactic population, resource distribution, and consumption rates for the past 1,000 years. I need to understand this galaxy's trajectory, its sustainability, its timeline to collapse. Second, I require the temple's holocron vault. Your force-powered data storage devices intrigue me. Third, I want passage to the Outer Rim with no pursuit. My Black Order and I will conduct our own survey of this galaxy's condition. And in exchange," Yoda asked quietly, "the dreadnought remains in orbit, dormant. The temple stands. Your Jedi live. And I agree not to implement any population reduction protocols until I have completed my analysis. If your galaxy is truly sustainable, if your civilizations are managing resources responsibly, then perhaps my solution is unnecessary here. But if I find what I expect, overpopulation, resource depletion, civilizations consuming their own futures, then I will do what must be done, with or without your cooperation." The Jedi Council members present began arguing immediately. Kit Fisto insisted they could disable the ship in time. Saicitine claimed he could pilot a fighter close enough to disrupt its hyperdrive. Aegon Kolar advocated for a direct assault on Thanos regardless of consequences, but Mace Windu silenced them all with a raised hand. "You're asking us to give you the tools to destroy billions," Windu said, his voice tight with controlled rage. "To hand over our most sacred knowledge to someone who admits to genocide, to trust that you'll abide by your word after you've demonstrated nothing but ruthless pragmatism." "Yes," Thanos confirmed. "Because the alternative is 20 million dead today, your order crippled, and your galaxy destabilized beyond recovery. At least my offer provides time. Time to prove me wrong. Time to show that your way works. Time to prepare defenses if I decide it doesn't. Strategically speaking, you gain far more by accepting than refusing." Yoda closed his eyes, his ancient face heavy with centuries of accumulated wisdom and sorrow. The Force swirled around him, invisible to Thanos but palpable to every other Force-sensitive on the platform. The Grand Master was consulting the Force itself, seeking guidance from the cosmic energy that had governed Jedi decisions for millennia. When he opened his eyes, they held terrible sadness. "Agree we do, to your terms. But know this, Thanos of Titan, watch you we will. Every action, every movement. And if threaten innocent lives, you do. If break your word, you do. Then hunt you across this galaxy we shall. No corner of space will hide you from the Jedi Order's justice." Thanos inclined his head. "I would expect nothing less. Send the data to coordinates I will provide, the holocrons as well, and prepare a ship suitable for long-range travel. I depart Coruscant within the hour." He turned to leave, Ebony Maw falling into step beside him. But Mace Windu's voice stopped him at the platform's edge. "Why?" the Jedi Master demanded. "If you truly believe in your philosophy of balance, why warn us about the threat you pose? Why negotiate instead of simply destroying the temple and eliminating your opposition while you had the element of surprise?" Thanos looked back over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. "Because, Master Windu, I am not your villain. I am not motivated by hatred or ambition or the petty emotions that drive lesser beings. I seek balance, not conquest. If your galaxy can prove its sustainability, if your civilizations can demonstrate responsible stewardship of finite resources, then my intervention is unnecessary. But if they cannot..." He paused, his eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 Republic ships now surrounding the captured dreadnought. "Then at least I gave you the chance to prove me wrong. That is more mercy than most civilizations receive. Use it wisely." The Mad Titan and his servant departed the temple, leaving behind a Jedi Order shaken to its foundations. Above Coruscant, the stolen dreadnought powered down its weapons and entered a holding pattern. The crisis had passed for now. But in the shadows of the Force, a presence stirred with interest. Darth Sidious had observed everything from his Chancellor's office, his plans for Order 66 suddenly complicated by a variable he had not foreseen. This Thanos represented both threat and opportunity, a being of immense power who existed outside the Force's influence, who could potentially accomplish what the Sith Lord had spent decades orchestrating, or who could disrupt everything and force Sidious to accelerate his timeline. In his office, surrounded by holographic displays showing troop movements and political maneuverings, Palpatine smiled. The galaxy had just become far more interesting, and where there was chaos, there was opportunity for those wise enough to exploit it. The pieces were moving, the board was set, and now 3 forces converged on the same prize: the future of the galaxy itself. The Jedi sought to preserve it, the Sith sought to rule it, and Thanos sought to save it through methods none of them could accept. The Clone Wars had just gained a 3rd participant, and this one played by rules no one in this galaxy understood. The Sanctuary, a reconfigured Republic frigate gifted, or rather extorted, from the Jedi Council, sliced through hyperspace toward the Outer Rim territories. Thanos stood on the bridge, his massive frame silhouetted against the swirling blue tunnel of faster-than-light travel, studying holographic projections of galactic census data. Behind him, Ebony Maw manipulated dozens of data streams simultaneously with telekinetic precision, while Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive stood guard at the entrances. "The patterns are unmistakable," Ebony Maw observed. his voice carrying its usual mixture of reverence and intellectual satisfaction. This galaxy's population has increased 47% in the last century alone. Resource extraction rates have tripled, and according to their own economic projections, at least 60 core worlds will face critical shortages within 2 generations. Thanos nodded slowly, his eyes tracking population density maps. The core worlds glowed bright red. Coruscant alone held over 1 trillion beings packed onto a single planet-wide city. The mid-rim showed yellow warnings. Only the outer rim retained any sustainable balance, and even there, corporate exploitation was accelerating resource depletion at catastrophic rates. "They know," Thanos said quietly. "Their scientists have documented the crisis. Their economists have calculated the timeline to collapse, and yet their governments do nothing. The Republic debates endlessly while corporations strip mine worlds to bedrock. The Separatists claim to offer solutions but simply pursue profit through different methods. Both sides accelerate toward the same cliff. Then your solution is justified," Proxima Midnight stated flatly. "This galaxy requires culling." Perhaps. Thanos minimized the economic projections and brought up military deployment records stolen from the Jedi archives. Thousands of conflicts, millions of soldiers, entire sectors consumed by war. But there is another variable. This Clone Wars, it is not what it appears to be. Ebony Maw tilted his head curiously. "Father, look at the patterns." Thanos highlighted specific battles, tracing supply lines and strategic decisions. The Republic and Separatists fight with remarkable inefficiency. Battles that should end in decisive victories instead become prolonged stalemates. Resources are deployed in ways that maximize casualties while minimizing strategic gain. And the Jedi, he pulled up casualty reports. They lose more knights each month. Their orders slowly bled across 1,000 battlefields. "Someone is managing the war," Corvus Glaive observed, his tactical mind recognizing the pattern. "Prolonging it deliberately." Precisely. Thanos magnified a particular data point, the Senate's Emergency Powers Act that had granted Supreme Chancellor Palpatine unprecedented authority. This war serves a purpose beyond its stated objectives. Someone is using it to concentrate power, eliminate obstacles, and reshape galactic governance. The question is, who benefits most from the Jedi Order's destruction? Before anyone could answer, proximity alarms blared. The sanctuary dropped from hyperspace abruptly, emergency protocols engaging as something massive appeared directly in their flight path. Through the viewport, a Separatist fleet materialized. 20 warships in battle formation, their weapons already charging. "Clever," Thanos admitted. "They predicted our route and laid a trap." Maw, analysis. The telepath's eyes glowed faintly as he interfaced with the ship's sensors. Providence-class dreadnought at the center, supported by Munificent-class frigates and Recusant-class destroyers. Approximately 400 Vulture droids launching now. Shields are... Father, their shields are being augmented by something, not standard Separatist technology. A holographic transmission activated on the bridge. Count Dooku's aristocratic face appeared, but he was not alone. Standing beside him was a figure Thanos had not yet encountered, but recognized from the intelligence gathered by his Black Order. General Grievous, the Separatist cyborg commander. And behind them, partially obscured by shadows, stood someone else. Someone whose presence made even Thanos pause. The figure stepped forward, and Thanos saw an elderly man in simple robes, his face kindly and unremarkable. Yet something about him set every tactical instinct screaming warnings. This being radiated danger the way stars radiated light, a fundamental emanation that transcended physical threat. "Thanos of Titan," the old man said, his voice warm and grandfatherly. "I am Chancellor Palpatine of the Galactic Republic, though you may know me by another name." The kindly facade flickered, and for just an instant, Thanos glimpsed something else beneath. Yellow eyes burning with malevolent power, a face twisted by dark energies. "I am Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith," Ebony Maw hissed in surprise. Proxima Midnight's weapon materialized in her hand, but Thanos raised one hand, commanding stillness. "The master puppeteer reveals himself. You orchestrated this war. The entire Clone Wars is your design. Orchestrated, designed, engineered. Sidious's voice shifted, becoming layered with dark resonance. For decades, I have shaped events, moving pieces into position. The Jedi suspect nothing. The Senate serves my will unknowingly. And soon, very soon, I will transform this failing republic into an empire that will rule for 10,000 years. Then why reveal yourself to me? Thanos asked. Why not simply destroy my ship and eliminate the variable that threatens your plans? Sidious smiled, and it was the expression of a predator recognizing another apex hunter. Because Thanos, we are not so different. You seek to save the universe through controlled reduction. I seek to save the galaxy through absolute order. Both of us understand that sentiment and weakness lead only to collapse. Both of us are willing to make hard choices that softer beings cannot comprehend. You want an alliance? Thanos stated flatly. I want to make you an offer. Sidious gestured and new data streams appeared in Thanos' holographic display, detailed plans for something called Order 66. Protocols embedded in the clone army's genetic programming. Contingency commands that would turn 3 million loyal soldiers into Jedi executioners simultaneously across the entire galaxy. In one day, I can eliminate the Jedi Order completely. No siege, no hyperspace collision, simply evolution. The removal of an obsolete institution that has failed this galaxy. Thanos studied the plans with growing understanding. Elegant, efficient, using the Republic's own weapon against its guardians. The Jedi trust their clone soldiers implicitly. They would never see it coming. Exactly. Sidious's eyes gleamed with dark satisfaction. And afterward, with the Jedi eliminated and the Separatists defeated, I will have the authority to restructure galactic civilization. Population controls, resource management, efficient governance unconstrained by democracy's endless debate. I can implement the very solutions you recognize as necessary. Under your absolute rule, Thanos observed. Would that trouble you? You eliminated half of all life in your universe. Surely you understand that difficult decisions require strong leadership, unconcerned with approval or sentiment. Thanos was silent for a long moment, his mind calculating probabilities and outcomes. Sidious's plan was sophisticated, built on decades of preparation. It would work. The Jedi Order would fall, the Republic would transform into an authoritarian state, and one being would control the galaxy. But there was a flaw in the Sith Lord's logic, a fundamental misunderstanding of Thanos' philosophy. Your empire would not save this galaxy, Thanos said finally. It would simply concentrate resources in different hands. Your rule would be efficient, yes, but efficiency without balance is still unsustainable. You seek power, Sidious. I seek equilibrium. We are not the same. The Sith Lord's expression hardened. Then you refuse my offer? I refuse your empire. Thanos straightened to his full height. But I will not stop your Order 66. The Jedi Order is doomed regardless, by your hand or their own failures. Better it falls now than lingers for decades while this galaxy consumes itself. Execute your plan, Sidious. Eliminate the Jedi. Transform your republic into an empire. And when you have consolidated your power, when you believe yourself supreme, Thanos smiled without humor. I will show you what true balance requires. Sidious's face twisted with rage, the mask of civility evaporating completely. You dare threaten me? I am the Dark Lord of the Sith. I have orchestrated the fall of the Jedi Order. I have deceived the entire galaxy for decades. What are you but a refugee from a dead universe? Powerless before the Force? I am inevitability, Thanos replied simply. You may rule this galaxy for a time, Sidious. But empires built on power alone always crumble, and when yours does, I will be waiting. With or without your cooperation, balance will be achieved. The hologram flickered with Sidious's barely controlled fury. Then, with visible effort, the Sith Lord composed himself. Very well, you have made your position clear. But understand this, Thanos. You will not interfere with my plans. You will not warn the Jedi about Order 66. You will not attempt to disrupt the coming transformation, and if you do, the Separatist fleet's weapons powered up in unison. I have calculated what it takes to kill something that the Force cannot touch. Overwhelming physical force applied with precision. 20 warships firing simultaneously. Not even you can survive that. Thanos regarded the fleet calmly. Perhaps not, but my Black Order can. And they have their orders. If I fall, they implement Protocol Omega. Every major population center in the galaxy, targeted simultaneously. Billions dead within hours. Your carefully orchestrated empire, stillborn in chaos. So ask yourself, Sidious, is eliminating me worth that cost? The standoff stretched across the vacuum of space. Two apex predators, each recognizing the other's capability for absolute destruction, each calculating whether mutual annihilation served their purposes. Finally, Sidious waved one hand dismissively. You may proceed, Thanos, for now, but stay out of the core worlds. Remain in the outer rim where your research will not interfere with galactic affairs. When Order 66 commences, I expect you to observe from a distance. Is that acceptable? For now, Thanos echoed. But know this, Sidious, I will be watching. Your empire's policies, its resource management, its long-term sustainability. And if I find it lacking... He left the threat unspoken. The hologram terminated. The Separatist fleet held position for another moment, then jumped to hyperspace, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The Sanctuary's bridge crew remained silent, processing what they had just witnessed. Father, Ebony Maw said quietly, you have made an enemy of the most powerful being in this galaxy. No, Thanos corrected. I have revealed what we always were, opposing forces on an inevitable collision course. He seeks to rule. I seek to balance. One of us will prevail. It is simply a matter of time and preparation. He turned back to the star charts, already calculating new strategies. The Jedi Order would fall, an empire would rise. And when the dust settled, when Sidious believed himself supreme, Thanos would implement the solution this galaxy needed, whether they wanted it or not. 3 weeks passed as Thanos and the Black Order traveled the Outer Rim, cataloging worlds and civilizations that existed on the Republic's periphery. They visited mining colonies where entire planets had been stripped to barren rock. They observed agricultural worlds poisoned by industrial runoff from corporate processing facilities. They documented systems where overpopulation had created humanitarian disasters that neither Republic nor Separatists bothered addressing. And through it all, Thanos refined his calculations. Tatooine was their 5th stop, a desert world so desolate that even the Hutt's exploitation had been half-hearted. The twin suns beat down mercilessly as Thanos walked through Mos Eisley's dusty streets, observing the subsistence-level existence that defined life here. Moisture farmers struggled to extract water from the arid atmosphere. Scavengers picked through the wreckage of ships that had crashed decades ago. And everywhere, beings lived in quiet desperation, forgotten by the galactic powers that shaped their fates. This world produces nothing, Proxima Midnight observed disdainfully. Why include it in your survey? Because it exists, Thanos replied. Because beings live here, consume resources here, struggle here. Every world matters in the final calculation. Every population contributes to the sum total that determines sustainability. They entered a cantina, the same establishment where, in another timeline, a young moisture farmer would meet an old Jedi and begin a journey that would reshape the galaxy. But that was months or years away. Today, the cantina held only the usual collection of smugglers, bounty hunters, and beings seeking to escape the twin suns' heat. Thanos sat at a corner table, his massive frame drawing stares that quickly averted when beings caught sight of the Black Order flanking him. A Rhodian server approached nervously, took their orders for local beverages, and scurried away. They were left alone, exactly as Thanos preferred. The data is conclusive, Ebony Maw said, reviewing information on a portable holoprojector. This galaxy's population exceeds sustainable levels by approximately 38%. Resource depletion rates indicate critical shortages in core sectors within 42 standard years, and the war accelerates the timeline. Then the solution is clear, Corvus Glaive stated. Begin the culling. Not yet. Thanos studied the cantina's patrons with calculating eyes. I gave my word to the Jedi Council. I would complete my analysis before implementing any protocols. That analysis is not yet complete. You're hesitating, Proxima Midnight accused, though her tone held curiosity rather than judgment. Why, Father? You've never doubted before. Thanos was silent for a moment, watching a young human boy, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, weave between tables, begging for credits or food scraps. The child's ribs showed through torn clothing, his face gaunt with malnutrition. Most patrons ignored him. Some cursed him. But one, an elderly Twi'lek woman with scarred leku, handed the boy a piece of bread, her own meal noticeably reduced by the gesture. In my universe, Thanos said quietly, the snap was instantaneous, random, painless. Beings simply ceased to exist, unaware of their elimination. But here I lack the Infinity Stones. Any culling must be done through conventional means: war, plague, systematic execution, methods that create suffering before death. Is that balance, or merely murder on a grand scale? Does the method matter if the result saves the galaxy? Ebony Maw asked. Perhaps. Thanos finished his drink, some vile local concoction that burned pleasantly. Or perhaps I am not the solution this galaxy needs. Perhaps. He stopped mid-sentence. Through the cantina's entrance, a figure had arrived that made even Thanos pause. A Jedi, traveling alone, his brown robes dusty from desert travel. But not just any Jedi. Thanos recognized him from the intelligence gathered during his time on Coruscant. Obi-Wan Kenobi, High Council member, general in the Clone Wars, and one of the Order's most respected warriors. Kenobi surveyed the cantina with practiced eyes, noting threats, calculating exits, assessing the room's dynamics in seconds. When his gaze fell on Thanos, the Jedi Master's expression shifted from wariness to grim determination. He approached the table directly, one hand resting near but not on his lightsaber. Thanos, Kenobi said, his voice carrying the cultured accent of Coruscant's upper levels. The Council suspected you might travel the Outer Rim. They sent me to observe. To spy, Thanos corrected, to ensure I honor my agreement. Sit, Master Kenobi. You look like you've traveled far. The Jedi hesitated, then took the offered seat with the cautious grace of a warrior, maintaining tactical advantage. The Black Order tensed, but Thanos waved them to stillness. He's here to talk, not fight. Isn't that right, Master Jedi? For now, Kenobi signaled the server, ordered water, and returned his attention to Thanos. The Council is divided about you. Some believe you're an existential threat. Others think you're simply a lost traveler trying to find purpose in an unfamiliar galaxy. I'm here to determine which assessment is correct. And what do you think? Thanos asked, genuinely curious. Kenobi studied him for a long moment. I think you're the most dangerous being I've ever encountered. Not because of your strength, though that's considerable. Not because you exist outside the Force, though that's deeply troubling, but because you genuinely believe your philosophy is correct. You've convinced yourself that genocide is mathematics, that extinction is mercy. That makes you far more dangerous than any Sith Lord. Because the Sith know they're evil, Thanos observed, while I believe I'm necessary. Precisely, Kenobi's expression held something approaching sympathy. In my experience, the greatest atrocities are committed by beings who believe they're saving the world. The Sith pursue power consciously, knowing they traffic with darkness. But you've built an entire moral framework that justifies the unjustifiable. That's truly terrifying. Thanos leaned back, his chair creaking under his weight. Tell me something, Master Kenobi. In the Clone Wars, how many beings have died? Trillions? How many worlds have been devastated? How many children like that boy, he gestured to the young beggar, have lost everything because your Republic and the Separatists cannot find peace? Too many, Kenobi admitted quietly. Far too many. And yet the war continues. Both sides claim righteousness. Both sides believe their cause justifies the cost. How is that different from my solution? At least I'm honest about what I'm doing. I don't dress genocide in the language of liberation or freedom. I call it what it is: necessary reduction for long-term survival. The difference, Kenobi said, his voice harder now, is that we seek to end the war, to find peace, to build a future where such conflicts become unnecessary. You seek to make the killing permanent, to enshrine it as policy, to claim that mass murder is the only solution to complex problems. And if you're wrong, Thanos challenged, if your optimism is simply naivety, if this galaxy's trajectory leads inevitably to collapse regardless of your efforts, what then? Kenobi met his gaze steadily. Then we face that challenge when it comes, with wisdom and compassion rather than slaughter. We trust in the Force to guide us toward better answers. We maintain hope even when circumstances seem hopeless. Hope is not a strategy, perhaps not, but it's kept civilizations alive when cold calculation would have condemned them. The Jedi have survived for 25,000 years, Thanos, not through culling populations or enforcing balance through death, but through service, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to life. That legacy means something. Thanos was about to respond when the cantina's doors burst open. A squad of battle droids, B-1 models with rust-orange separatist markings, marched inside, their blasters raised. Behind them, a tactical droid's expressionless faceplate surveyed the room. "Attention," the tactical droid announced in its mechanical voice. "This establishment is now under separatist control. All Republic sympathizers will be detained for questioning. Remain seated and..." The droid's head exploded in a shower of sparks and metal. Obi-Wan's lightsaber was in his hand, its blue blade humming. The battle droid swiveled toward him, weapons charging. Patrons screamed and dove for cover. And Thanos remained seated, watching with clinical interest as events unfolded. Kenobi moved like water, his lightsaber deflecting blaster bolts back into their sources with mathematical precision. 3 droids fell in the first seconds, but more were pouring through the entrance now, 24 at least, with reinforcements audible outside. The Jedi was skilled, but even he couldn't maintain this pace indefinitely. "Father," Ebony Maw said quietly, "shall we assist?" Thanos considered. The Separatists were Sidious's tools, part of the Sith Lord's grand design. Helping a Jedi against them would be an action against Sidious's interests, but allowing Kenobi to die would eliminate a potential source of information. And more importantly, Thanos found himself curious to see how this Jedi fought, how he made decisions under pressure, whether his philosophy of hope held up when tested by immediate lethal threat. A blaster bolt got through Kenobi's defense, searing across his shoulder. The Jedi grunted in pain but didn't slow. Another bolt clipped his leg. He was tiring, his movements fractionally slower. The droids were overwhelming him through sheer numbers. Exactly the strategy their tactical programming dictated against Force-sensitive opponents. Thanos stood. The entire cantina seemed to freeze as the Mad Titan rose to his full height. Even the battle droids hesitated, their simple artificial intelligence recognizing something their programming couldn't categorize. Thanos crossed the space between his table and the droid formation in 3 massive strides. His fist crashed through the nearest B-1 model, crumpling it like foil. He grabbed another by its central chassis and used it as a club to demolish 3 more. Kolob Sidian laughed, a sound like grinding stone, and joined the fight, his massive axe cleaving droids in half. Proxima Midnight Spear flashed in quicksilver arcs, each strike precisely targeted at power coupling junctions. Corvus Glaive's blade seemed to pass through droid armor as if it didn't exist. And Ebony Maw simply gestured, sending a dozen battle droids flying backward through the cantina's wall. In 90 seconds, the threat was eliminated. Thanos surveyed the wreckage dispassionately, then turned to Kenobi. The Jedi had deactivated his lightsaber and was applying basic field dressing to his shoulder wound, his expression unreadable. "Why?" Kenobi asked simply. "Because I chose to," Thanos replied. "Because I wanted to see how you would respond. And because..." He paused, something shifting in his expression. "Because that child was still in here. The beggar boy, cowering behind the bar. If I had let the droids continue, he might have died. And I find that unacceptable." Kenobi stared at him for a long moment. Then, despite the pain of his injuries, despite everything, the Jedi smiled slightly. "Perhaps there's hope for you yet, Thanos. Do not mistake pragmatism for redemption, Master Kenobi. I saved 1 child today, but if my calculations demand it, I will still eliminate billions tomorrow. That has not changed." "Perhaps," Kenobi said, retrieving his lightsaber and limping toward the exit. Or perhaps you're beginning to understand that every billion is made of individuals, that mathematics cannot capture the full measure of life. That balance might mean something more than numbers divided by 2. He paused at the doorway. The Council will hear of this, that you helped a Jedi against separatist forces, that your actions contradicted your stated philosophy. What do you think they'll make of that? I neither know nor care, Thanos replied. Go, Master Kenobi. Report what you've seen. It changes nothing. But as the Jedi departed into Tatooine's harsh sunlight, Thanos found himself staring at the young boy who was emerging from behind the bar, eyes wide with shock and awe. The child looked at Thanos the way beings once looked at him in his own universe. With fear, yes, but also something else. Something that might have been gratitude. And for the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Thanos felt the faintest stirring of doubt about his purpose. The decision came 3 hours later, aboard the Sanctuary, with Thanos standing alone on the observation deck, watching Coruscant's lights shimmer below. His Black Order awaited his orders, prepared to implement whatever strategy their father commanded. They expected Protocol Omega. They expected population reduction. They expected the Mad Titan to fulfill his purpose. Instead, Thanos gave them the hardest order he had ever issued. We're leaving, he announced as they assembled on the bridge. Not just Coruscant, this galaxy. We're finding the dimensional rupture that brought us here and returning to our universe. Or we're finding another galaxy entirely, but we're not staying here. The silence that followed was absolute. Ebony Maw's telekinetic hold on nearby objects faltered in surprise. Proxima Midnight's weapon lowered slightly. Corvus Glaive's expressionless face somehow conveyed shock. Only Cull Obsidian seemed unsurprised, his limited emotional range masking whatever reaction he experienced. Father, Ebony Maw said carefully, have you abandoned your purpose? The calculations clearly show this galaxy faces resource crisis. The population requires balancing. Your solution? My solution is flawed, Thanos interrupted. Fundamentally, irrevocably flawed. I have reviewed evidence from alternate timelines, consulted with beings who possess knowledge beyond my own, and I have concluded that population reduction does not produce the outcomes I intended. It creates collapse, not salvation. Chaos, not balance. I was wrong. The admission cost him more than any physical battle ever had. To acknowledge failure after centuries of absolute conviction required a form of strength Thanos had never needed to develop. But having made the admission, he found it easier to continue. This galaxy's problems are real, he went on, but they're not mine to solve. The beings here must find their own path, forge their own solutions, make their own mistakes and learn from them. My interference, whether through population reduction or governmental reform or any other intervention, would only delay their necessary evolution. Then we do nothing. Proxima Midnight's tone held disbelief bordering on betrayal. We simply abandon a galaxy in crisis? That is not balance, Father. That is cowardice. Perhaps, Thanos acknowledged. Or perhaps it is wisdom I should have possessed long ago. The recognition that not every problem requires my solution, that some burdens belong to those who must carry them, that my role is not to save civilizations, but to stop pretending I possess the knowledge or authority to make that determination. Corvus Glaive stepped forward, his voice cold and analytical. And what of our oath to you? The Black Order exists to serve your vision of balance. If that vision is abandoned, what purpose do we serve? Thanos met each of their gazes in turn, seeing the confusion and hurt beneath their tactical masks. They had followed him across universes, committed atrocities in his name, sacrificed everything for a cause he was now declaring invalid. He owed them more than philosophical explanations. Your oath is released, he said formally. The Black Order is dissolved. Each of you may choose your own path. Remain in this galaxy and find new purpose. Seek another universe where your skills serve different masters, or come with me into exile, knowing that we pursue no grand vision, serve no cosmic balance, and offer no justification beyond survival, and perhaps, eventually, understanding. You're giving us a choice? Ebony Maw's voice carried wonder. In all our years of service, you have never... I have never questioned whether my certainty justified the servitude I demanded. Thanos finished. Another failure. Another miscalculation. You are not tools, children. You are individuals with agency I chose not to recognize because acknowledging your autonomy complicated my equations. That ends now. Choose. The Black Order exchanged glances, conducting some silent communication Thanos couldn't interpret. Finally, Ebony Maw spoke for them all. We choose to follow you, Father, not because of oaths or cosmic balance or any grand philosophy, but because in releasing us, you have given us something no master ever has, genuine freedom. And we choose to use that freedom to stand with you wherever that path leads, even if it leads nowhere. Something in Thanos' chest, some organ he'd forgotten he possessed, tightened painfully. He had inspired loyalty through conviction and power. But this was different. This was devotion freely given, without coercion or manipulation. It felt simultaneously humbling and terrifying. Then we depart immediately, he said, his voice rougher than intended. Before Palpatine's Order 66 executes, before the Jedi fall, before I'm tempted to intervene in events that aren't mine to shape. But even as he gave the order, proximity alarms blared. Multiple ships were dropping from hyperspace around Coruscant. Not Republic or Separatist vessels, but something else entirely. The sanctuary's sensors strained to identify the new arrivals before recognition protocols activated. Sith infiltrators, a dozen of them, carrying Palpatine's personal guard and likely Darth Vader himself. Though at this point in the timeline, Anakin Skywalker hadn't yet fallen completely to darkness, but close, dangerously close. A holographic transmission activated on the bridge, and Darth Sidious's twisted face materialized, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. Did you truly think you could leave without my permission, Thanos? You possess knowledge of my plans. You represent a variable I cannot control. And variables must be eliminated before they contaminate carefully orchestrated outcomes. I'm leaving, Thanos stated flatly. Your Order 66, your empire, your machinations, none of it concerns me anymore. Let me go, Sidious, and you'll never see me again. I don't believe you. Sidious's smile was pure malevolence. You're too dangerous to release, too powerful to control. And now that you've shown weakness, now that you've hesitated, doubted, questioned your purpose, you're vulnerable. Vulnerable beings die easily, Thanos. Even Titans. The Sith infiltrators began their attack runs, targeting the sanctuary with precision that suggested force-guided aim. But before they could fire, another presence made itself known. A massive Republic cruiser dropped from hyperspace directly between Thanos' ship and the attacking Sith vessels. The Negotiator, flagship of Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi. Kenobi's holographic form appeared beside Sidious's, addressing Thanos directly. The Council debated what to do about you for hours. Some wanted you imprisoned. Some wanted you destroyed. But I convinced them of something they couldn't sense through the Force. That you were changing. That your encounter on Tatooine, your hesitation, your doubt, these were signs of genuine evolution. So I'm offering you what you offered the Jedi weeks ago. Time. Time to leave. Time to find your path. Time to become something other than what you were. Kenobi! Sidious's fury was incandescent. You dare interfere with Separatist vessels attacking an unidentified ship in Republic space? Kenobi's tone was mild but unyielding. I'm simply following my mandate as a General Chancellor, protecting Republic interests from hostile action. Surely you wouldn't object to that. The standoff stretched across the vacuum of space. Sidious's infiltrators versus Kenobi's cruiser. The Jedi unwilling to back down. The Sith unable to attack without revealing his true nature prematurely. And Thanos, caught between forces he had underestimated from the moment he arrived in this galaxy. Go, Kenobi said quietly, his hologram flickering. Before the Chancellor finds a way around legal technicalities. Before other forces arrive that I can't counter. And Thanos, thank you for saving those children in the cantina. Whatever you were, whatever you might become, that action mattered. Remember that. Thanos nodded once, respect passing between warriors who understood the cost of difficult choices. Then he turned to his crew. Engage hyperdrive, maximum speed, Heading, he paused, consulting star charts that meant nothing to him, choosing a direction at random. Heading for the unknown regions, as far from this conflict as we can reach. The sanctuary's engines flared, and reality bent as they prepared to jump. Through the viewport, Thanos saw Coruscant receding, the Jedi Temple still standing against the sky, unaware of its coming destruction. He saw Kenobi's cruiser holding position, buying him time the Jedi Master didn't have to spare. And he saw Sidious's face contorted with rage, knowing the Sith Lord would remember this moment, would mark Thanos as an enemy who escaped justice. But none of that mattered anymore, because as the stars stretched into infinite lines and the sanctuary leapt into hyperspace, Thanos felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: freedom from purpose, liberation from cosmic obligation, relief from the burden of believing himself necessary. He was no longer the architect of balance, no longer the inevitable force that civilizations must endure. He was simply a being. Powerful, yes. Dangerous, certainly, but fallible, incomplete, and perhaps in acknowledging those limitations, closer to wisdom than he had ever been when he believed himself infallible. Behind them, Coruscant's lights faded into the infinite dark. Ahead, the unknown regions promised exactly what their name suggested: territory unmapped, possibilities unconsidered, futures undetermined. And for the first time since his quest began on Titan so long ago, Thanos didn't know what came next. It was terrifying. It was liberating. It was, perhaps, the beginning of actual balance. The unknown regions lived up to their name. For 3 weeks, the sanctuary traveled through space that appeared on no Republic charts, past star systems that had never felt the influence of Jedi or Sith, through sectors where civilizations rose and fell in isolation from galactic politics. Thanos used the time to study, to reflect, and to dismantle decades of certainty that had defined his existence. Ashka's words haunted him, the timelines where his snap had succeeded, where half of all life vanished, where civilizations collapsed into extinction, rather than achieving the sustainable balance he'd envisioned. Every night cycle, Thanos reviewed those images, forcing himself to confront the truth. His solution had never been salvation. It had been genocide dressed in mathematical justification, cruelty disguised as necessity, ego masquerading as cosmic responsibility. "Father," Ebony Maw said one evening as they reviewed sensor data from a nearby system, "I've been analyzing our trajectory. If we maintain this heading, we'll reach the edge of the galaxy within 2 weeks. Beyond that," he paused meaningfully, "beyond that is intergalactic void. No stars, no planets, no resources. If we continue, we commit to permanent exile in the dark between galaxies." "And?" Thanos prompted. "And I wonder if that's truly what you want. To run, to hide, to abandon not just this galaxy, but the very concept of purpose itself. Is that wisdom, Father? Or is it simply despair with different branding?" Thanos considered the question carefully. "What would you have me do, Maw? Return to Coruscant? Intervene in Palpatine's Order 66? Attempt to save a Jedi Order that neither wants nor needs my protection? Force my solutions onto civilizations that have survived millennia without my interference? No," Maw admitted, "but perhaps there's a middle ground between cosmic intervention and complete withdrawal. You've learned that your previous methods were flawed. That doesn't mean abandoning all action, only that future actions should be smaller, more targeted, less certain of their own righteousness." Before Thanos could respond, every alarm on the bridge activated simultaneously. The sanctuary lurched violently, throwing crew members against restraints. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to tear, a familiar sight that sent ice through Thanos' veins. A dimensional rift, just like the one that had brought them to this galaxy. "All power to shields," Thanos commanded, but it was too late. The rift's gravity well was already pulling them in, irresistible as a black hole's event horizon. The ship's hull groaned under impossible stresses. Systems failed in cascading sequence, and then, with a sensation like falling through ice into burning fire, the sanctuary plunged into the rupture between realities. The journey lasted simultaneously forever and no time at all. Thanos experienced sensations his enhanced physiology shouldn't have been capable of processing. Colors that existed outside visible spectrum. Sounds that resonated in dimensions he couldn't perceive. The overwhelming awareness of infinite universes layered on top of each other like transparent sheets. Each one slightly different, each one real. And then they were through. Ejected from the rift into normal space with enough velocity to send the sanctuary tumbling. Thanos fought the controls, burning thrusters to stabilize their trajectory. When the ship finally steadied, he looked through the viewport and felt his breath catch. They were home. Not the same moment they'd left. The star positions were different, suggesting months or years had passed. But this was definitely his universe. The reality where he'd spent centuries pursuing the Infinity Stones, where he'd assembled his armies and conducted his crusade for balance. The cosmic background radiation carried familiar signatures. The quantum foam of space-time resonated with patterns he recognized at a fundamental level. "Father," Proxima Midnight said, her voice carrying wonder and trepidation, "if we're back in our universe, the Infinity Stones. Your gauntlet, your original mission, everything you sacrificed to achieve balance here. You could resume." "No," Thanos interrupted, his voice firm. "That path leads to the same failures I've already witnessed, the same collapse, the same extinction masked as salvation. We're home, yes, but I am not the being who left here. That Thanos died in the dimensional crossing. What remains is something else." He activated long-range sensors, scanning for any sign of the conflict he'd left behind. The Avengers, the Guardians, the countless heroes who had opposed his quest. But the readings were strange, too quiet, too peaceful. No massive fleet movements, no planetary-scale battles, no cosmic upheaval. "Ma, can you determine when we are? How much time has passed since the dimensional rift pulled us away?" The telepath interfaced with the ship's quantum chronometers, cross-referencing stellar positions and galactic drift rates. His expression grew increasingly troubled. "Father, according to these readings, we're approximately 7 years after your disappearance. 7 years since you attempted the snap and vanished." "7 years," Thanos repeated, processing the implications. "Then the universe has already responded to my absence. The question is, how?" They received their answer when they approached Titan, Thanos' homeworld, the planet he'd watched die from overpopulation and resource depletion, the cradle of his philosophy about necessary culling. Except it wasn't dead anymore. Titan's surface, which Thanos remembered as barren wasteland, now teemed with life. Massive terraforming installations hummed with activity, transforming dead soil into arable land. Orbital stations processed resources from the asteroid belt, building infrastructure without strip mining the planet itself. And everywhere, beings of 100 species worked together, not in desperation, but in coordinated effort that spoke of planning, cooperation, and genuine hope. A transmission reached the sanctuary as they entered orbit. A face appeared on the holographic display that made Thanos' heart constrict painfully. Nebula, his adopted daughter, the one he'd tortured and enhanced and broken in his quest to forge her into a perfect weapon. But this Nebula looked different. Her cybernetic implants were being systematically replaced with organic tissue, her face held peace instead of rage, and her eyes showed forgiveness he didn't deserve. "Thanos," she said, her voice steady and strong. "We detected your ship's signature. We knew you'd return eventually. Welcome home." "What is this?" Thanos gestured to the transformed world below. Titan was dead, beyond saving. I watched it die because the population refused to accept necessary culling. "It was dead," Nebula confirmed. "But dead doesn't mean irredeemable. After you vanished, after the snap failed and the Infinity Stones scattered, the universe had a choice. Some wanted revenge against you for what you'd attempted. Some wanted to ensure your philosophy could never rise again. But others, myself included, chose a different path. We chose to prove you wrong." Another figure appeared beside Nebula in the transmission. Tony Stark, older than Thanos remembered, his arc reactor glowing steadily. The Mad Titan wanted to solve overpopulation through murder. We decided to solve it through innovation, terraforming technology, sustainable resource distribution, population education, interstellar colonization, all the solutions you dismissed because they weren't dramatic enough, weren't cosmic enough, weren't you enough. More figures crowded into the transmission frame. Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Thor, Rocket, Gamora, alive, whole, and looking at Thanos with an expression that mixed pity with disappointment. The Avengers, the Guardians, the heroes he'd fought across half the universe. "You were right about one thing," Carol Danvers said, her voice hard but fair. "The universe does face resource challenges. Population growth does stress finite systems. But you were wrong about everything else. The solution isn't killing half of all life. It's building civilizations sophisticated enough to manage resources sustainably. And in the 7 years you've been gone, that's what we've been doing." Thor stepped forward, Stormbreaker resting on his shoulder. "We rebuilt Asgard, not as a realm of conquest, but as a community of refugees helping each other survive. We terraformed 17 dead worlds. We established resource-sharing treaties between civilizations that had been enemies for millennia. And we did it all without your balance. We did it through cooperation, sacrifice, and the radical belief that life is worth preserving, not culling." Thanos absorbed this information, his mind racing through implications. They had achieved what he'd believed impossible: sustainable growth without population reduction. Not through his cosmic intervention, but through collective effort, technological innovation, and the willingness to change systemic practices rather than eliminate populations. "Then you've proven me unnecessary," Thanos said quietly. "My philosophy was not just flawed, but obsolete. The universe found better solutions without me." "Yes," Gamora said, her voice gentle but unyielding. "And that's the hardest truth you'll ever face. That your grand cosmic purpose was always a lie you told yourself to justify cruelty. That the universe never needed a mad titan. It needed people willing to do the hard, unglamorous work of building better systems, of educating populations, of reforming governance, of choosing cooperation over culling." "So what now?" Thanos asked. "Do you imprison me? Execute me? Ensure I can never threaten your accomplishments?" Tony Stark smiled without humor. "We debated that for years. Some wanted exactly what you described, but others, your daughters especially, argued that punishment wasn't justice, that forcing you to witness the universe thriving without your intervention would be more effective than any prison. So you're just letting me go?" Thanos felt disoriented by the concept. "After everything I attempted? After I tried to eliminate half of all existence?" "We're letting you live with the consequences of your failure," Nebula corrected. "Every world you visit will be one we've rebuilt. Every civilization you encounter will be one that survived and thrived after rejecting your philosophy. Everywhere you go, you'll see evidence that you were wrong. Comprehensively, fundamentally wrong. That's your sentence, Thanos. Eternal confrontation with your own obsolescence." The transmission continued with details about the new interstellar order they'd established. The Galactic Resource Coalition, the Terraforming Initiative, the population education programs. Systems and structures designed to address the real challenges Thanos had identified, but through construction rather than destruction, through cooperation rather than culling. Finally, Nebula addressed him directly one last time. "You can land on Titan if you wish. You can see what we've built from your planet's ashes, or you can continue running to the edge of the universe, seeking some corner of space where your philosophy still matters. Either way, you'll find the same truth. The universe moved on without you, and it's better for your absence." The transmission ended, leaving Thanos alone with his crew and his thoughts. Through the viewport, Titan spun peacefully, a world reborn, a monument to solutions he'd never considered, proof that his certainty had been delusion. "Father," Ebony Maw said carefully, "what are your orders?" Thanos stared at his homeworld for a long time. Then he made a decision that would have been impossible for the being he'd been when this journey began. "Take us down," he said. "I want to see what they've built. I want to understand how they succeeded where I failed. And perhaps," he paused, the admission costing him everything, Perhaps I want to learn how to be something other than the Mad Titan, how to exist without cosmic purpose, how to simply be. The sanctuary descended toward Titan's surface, carrying a being who had once believed himself the universe's necessary evil, who had calculated genocide as mathematics, who had sought to impose balance through extinction, but who now faced the hardest challenge of his existence, accepting that he was neither necessary nor evil, neither architect nor destroyer, but simply one being among countless others in a universe vast enough to contain infinite possibilities he'd never imagined. As they landed on Titan's rebuilt surface, Thanos caught his reflection in the viewport. The same purple skin, the same scarred face, the same powerful frame. But the eyes were different. They held something that had never been there before: uncertainty, humility, and the faintest ember of hope that perhaps obsolescence wasn't the end of existence, but the beginning of something new. Titan's reconstruction city sprawled across terrain Thanos remembered as lifeless wasteland. Transparent biodomes contained forests that shouldn't exist, agriculture that defied the planet's natural climate, and communities from a dozen species living in integrated harmony. The sanctuary landed at a designated pad where Nebula waited, flanked by Gamora and a security detail that maintained respectful distance without hostile posturing. Thanos descended the ramp slowly, each step heavier than the last. His daughter stood before him, Nebula with her partially restored humanity, Gamora with the wariness of someone who remembered her own death at his hands in other timelines. Neither moved to embrace him, neither raised weapons. They simply waited, offering the dignity of acknowledgement without the comfort of forgiveness. "This is Titan Reconstruction Zone 7, Nebula began, her voice carrying the practiced tone of a tour guide who'd given this speech many times. Population, 47,000. Species representation, 23. Primary industries, agricultural research, terraforming technology development, and educational programs for sustainable resource management. Crime rate, negligible. Resource shortages, none. Quality of life index, among the highest in the known universe." She gestured to the city spreading before them. "Everything you see was built without culling, without forced population reduction, without your philosophy. We did it through innovation, cooperation, and the radical belief that intelligent beings can solve problems without resorting to genocide." Thanos walked through the city with his daughters as reluctant guides, the Black Order following at a respectful distance. Everywhere he looked, he saw systems functioning efficiently, populations living sustainably, resources managed with sophisticated technology, and communal responsibility. Children, actual children, representing dozens of species, played in parks that shouldn't exist on a world he'd watched die. "The key was distribution, not reduction," Gamora explained as they passed a resource allocation center. "Most civilizations have sufficient resources. They simply lack efficient systems to ensure equitable access. We developed quantum logistics networks, automated distribution algorithms, and governance structures that prevent hoarding while incentivizing production. Population growth stabilized naturally once beings felt secure about their futures. They visited schools where young beings learned not just academic subjects, but sustainable practices, ethical resource management, and interspecies cooperation. They toured research facilities developing technologies Thanos had dismissed as impossible: faster-than-light terraforming, matter synthesis from base elements, energy generation with zero waste, solutions that addressed root causes rather than eliminating populations. At a memorial garden dedicated to Titan's original inhabitants, Thanos finally stopped. Thousands of names were etched into black stone. Everyone who had died when his homeworld collapsed, including the family he'd lost, the civilization he'd failed to save. Fresh flowers adorned the memorial, tended by descendants of survivors and new colonists alike. "We remember them," Nebula said softly. "Your people, your world, the tragedy that shaped your philosophy. But we also learned from their deaths, not that culling was necessary, but that proactive resource management could have saved them. That governance reform, not population reduction, was always the answer." "You mock me," Thanos said, his voice hollow. No, Gamora corrected. We pity you. You saw a real problem and proposed the worst possible solution. And then you convinced yourself that because the problem was real, your solution must be righteous. You confused capability for wisdom, conviction for correctness. And now you're forced to witness what could have been if you'd possessed the humility to ask for help instead of the arrogance to impose answers. Tony Stark approached from a nearby building, carrying a data pad and wearing the casual confidence of someone who'd won through innovation rather than conflict. Want to see something really interesting, Titan? Come with me. They entered a research facility where holographic displays showed population projections, resource consumption rates, and sustainability metrics for thousands of worlds. The data was comprehensive, sophisticated, and ultimately optimistic. Population growth was leveling across most civilizations, resource management was improving, and technological innovation was outpacing consumption in most sectors. This is what you missed, Stark said, manipulating the displays to show century-long trends. Population growth isn't infinite, it's sigmoid. Populations grow rapidly during industrialization, then level off as education improves, healthcare advances, and beings gain confidence in their children's survival. You looked at the exponential growth phase and extrapolated doom. We looked at the same data and saw a temporary problem with long-term solutions. He pulled up another chart showing Thanos' projected culling scenarios compared to the actual sustainable development path. Your snap, if it had succeeded, would have temporarily reduced population, yes, but within 3 generations, numbers would have rebounded to previous levels. Except civilizations would have been traumatized, infrastructure would have collapsed, and billions more would have died from the chaos you created. You would have turned a manageable challenge into an extinction event. I saw timelines, Thanos admitted, the words coming with difficulty. In the Star Wars galaxy, a watcher showed me universes where my snap succeeded, where everything collapsed exactly as you describe. I had already learned this truth. You're not telling me anything I haven't confronted. Good, Stark said, his expression softening slightly. Then you know. The question is, what do you do with that knowledge? Some beings double down on failed philosophy rather than admit error. Others learn, adapt, grow. Which are you, Thanos? Before Thanos could answer, alarms sounded throughout the facility. Emergency broadcasts activated on every display, and across 1,000 worlds connected to the Galactic Resource Coalition, the same message appeared. Dimensional incursion detected. Multiple realities converging. Threat level, extinction. Thor materialized via Bifrost, Stormbreaker crackling with energy. The dimensional rift that brought Thanos back. It didn't close. It's expanding, pulling other universes into collision with ours. If we don't stop it, multiple realities will tear themselves apart trying to occupy the same space. How do we close it? Gamora demanded. We can't, Thor said grimly. Not with any technology we possess. The energy required would exceed a solar output. Unless, he turned to Thanos, his expression calculating. Unless someone who's already survived dimensional crossing could navigate the rift's interior, reach its core, and manually collapse the breach from within. Everyone looked at Thanos. The mad titan who'd wanted to save the universe through culling, who'd journeyed to another galaxy and learned the futility of his philosophy, who now faced a genuine crisis where his unique experience might actually matter. It's a suicide mission, Nebula said flatly. The rift's interior would tear apart anything with mass, even you, Father. Even with the sanctuary's shields, you'd have minutes before dimensional stresses destroyed your ship and everyone aboard. Then minutes will have to suffice, Thanos said, surprised by how calm he felt. Ma, prepare the sanctuary for dimensional re-entry. Plot a course to the rift's coordinates. All systems to maximum. Father, Ebony Maw's protest died as he saw Thanos' expression. This is not cosmic purpose, Thanos said, addressing his Black Order and the assembled heroes alike. This is not destiny or balance or the universe demanding my intervention. This is simply a problem I'm uniquely positioned to address. Nothing more, nothing less, no philosophy required. He turned to his daughters, seeing them clearly perhaps for the first time. I cannot undo what I've done, cannot restore the years I stole, the trust I shattered, the love I corrupted into weapons. But I can do this. One action that helps instead of harms, one choice that protects instead of culls. It won't redeem me, nothing could, but it might mean my existence wasn't entirely pointless. Gamora's eyes glistened. You're really going to do this? Sacrifice yourself to save universes you wanted to cull? I'm going to die doing something useful, Thanos corrected. There's a difference. One is heroism, the other is just cleanup. The sanctuary launched within minutes, carrying Thanos and the Black Order toward the expanding dimensional rift. Through the viewport, reality itself warped, colors bleeding into each other, physical laws becoming suggestions. The boundaries between possible and impossible dissolving. You could stay behind, Thanos told his crew. This mission requires only one pilot. Your deaths accomplish nothing. Then they'll accomplish nothing together, Ebony Maw replied. We followed you seeking cosmic balance. We found instead something more valuable. Purpose defined not by grand philosophy, but by simple loyalty. If this is our end, Father, we face it as we faced everything. Together. The rift pulled them in, and the universe went mad. Inside, Thanos experienced again the sensation of infinite realities, layered impossibly close. He saw versions of himself, some successful in their snaps, presiding over dead universes, some defeated earlier, imprisoned or executed, some who never pursued the Infinity Stones at all, finding peace he'd never imagined. And in every timeline, every variation, every possibility, he saw the same truth. Cosmic purpose was always an illusion. Only choices mattered. Only actions defined existence. Only the moment itself was real. The rift's core was pure chaos, a singularity where dimensional barriers had worn so thin that universes bled into each other. Thanos could see the Star Wars galaxy from here, still recovering from Order 66, still struggling toward the rebellion that would eventually topple Palpatine's empire. He could see his own universe, rebuilt after his absence, thriving without his balance. He could see 1,000 others, each unique, each valuable, each deserving preservation. Maw, Thanos commanded, his voice steady despite the ship disintegrating around them. Transfer all remaining power to a concentrated energy pulse. Everything. Life support, shields, weapons, propulsion. Channel it all into one burst directed at the rift's quantum anchor. That will leave us defenseless, Corvus Glaive observed. We're already dead, Thanos replied. The question is whether our deaths accomplish anything. The sanctuary died to birth the energy pulse. Everything that had sustained them, every system, every backup, every redundancy, converted to pure power and fired directly into the dimensional breach's heart. The effect was catastrophic and beautiful. Reality screamed, bent, and finally, sealed. The rift collapsed, folding in on itself, severing connections between universes that should never have touched. And in that collapse, the sanctuary and everyone aboard were caught, pulled into the quantum foam between dimensions, scattered across space-time like dust in the wind. Thanos' last conscious thought was simple, unburdened by philosophy or purpose. Perhaps this is what balance actually means. Not imposed order, but willing sacrifice. Not cosmic judgment, but individual choice. Not the Mad Titan saving the universe, but simply one being doing what he could. Then there was nothing, and that was fine. 3 months after the dimensional rift collapsed, a memorial was erected on Titan. Not for Thanos, the Mad Titan, architect of genocide and prophet of culling, but for Thanos of Titan, flawed being who had finally learned restraint, who had chosen sacrifice over slaughter, who had spent his final moments protecting rather than purging. The memorial was modest, a simple stone marker bearing no grand pronouncements, no philosophical statements, just a name and dates that marked the span of an existence defined by terrible mistakes and one final redemption. Nebula and Gamora stood before it as the sun set over Titan's rebuilt surface, casting long shadows across gardens that bloomed from once dead soil. He never stopped being dangerous, Gamora said quietly. Even at the end, even transformed by failure, He was capable of terrible things. But he chose not to be, Nebula replied. That's what matters. Not that he possessed power, but that he finally learned restraint. Not that he could have culled populations, but that he refused. Not that he believed himself necessary, but that he accepted his obsolescence with something approaching grace. In the Star Wars galaxy, far across dimensional barriers that would never breach again, Obi-Wan Kenobi stood on Tatooine's desert surface and watched twin suns set. He'd sensed something through the Force, a disturbance, a resolution, a presence that had troubled him settling into final peace. The Mad Titan was gone, returned to his own universe and now departed from existence entirely. The galaxy would never know how close it had come to devastation, how a single being's philosophy had threatened everything, or how that being had ultimately chosen restraint over righteousness. The Force whispered its approval, and Kenobi smiled. Balance, it seemed, came in unexpected forms. On 1,000 worlds across multiple universes, life continued. Populations grew and stabilized. Resources were managed, distributed, protected through cooperation rather than culling. Civilizations faced challenges and developed solutions through innovation, sacrifice, and the fundamental belief that intelligent beings could build better futures without resorting to extinction. And in the quantum foam between realities, in spaces where existence itself was negotiable, fragments of consciousness drifted, not quite alive, not entirely dead, just present, aware. Watching universes thrive without cosmic intervention, witnessing balance achieved through collective effort rather than imposed order. If those fragments could have spoken, they might have said, "I was wrong," and that's okay. The universe never needed the Mad Titan. It only needed beings willing to do the work of building sustainable civilizations. My purpose was always an illusion, but perhaps recognizing that illusion, accepting that obsolescence, and choosing one final act of protection over destruction, perhaps that's the closest thing to wisdom I ever achieved. The universe is spun on, indifferent and magnificent, governed not by cosmic architects or mad titans, but by the collective choices of countless beings pursuing survival, meaning, and hope. Imperfect solutions to complex problems, flawed systems that nonetheless functioned. Civilizations that struggled and failed and rebuilt and tried again, learning gradually what Thanos never could, that life's value lay not in mathematical balance, but in the messy, chaotic, beautiful process of existence itself. May the Force be with you. More stories